Okay, so that was good, but at the same time, I had quite a lot of faceplant moments, although part of this has to do with the fact that they had to cram so much, and yet they're still showing so little and making it so uneven, because between trying to put tributes to the old school people in there, remind us why a couple people that have vanished from Survivor are now suddenly back, justifying the behavior of everyone after Heroes vs. Villains, and then trying to put in the edge bit, immunity, and tribal council. They just can't fit in everything. And then there's all these other advantages to boot, like the show is really trying to do too much. I'm gonna tell you right now. Like, if you really want us to be more okay with everything, you're gonna have to scale something back. Either have a less dynamic cast, which the producers don't want to do, or have less advantages, which the producers also don't want to do. They're screwed no matter what they do. Now, are we still gonna be watching the show? Of course. Like, if us Big Brother fans are going to keep watching the show in Big Brother Canada with producers constantly trying to change stuff, of course we're going to keep watching this. That doesn't mean we're still not going to complain about it, and the killer about this on the Big Brother side is that the big complainers are high-profile people from the show. Some of them have even won it. Okay. So, diving into the finale proper here. Turns out I was wrong about the edit bit, and that Natalie did manage to earn her way back, but she kept screwing up along the way and just as easily could have lost that challenge, because Tyson and Wendell were right there, and then Rob, Pav, and Adam were able to get all the way to that point as well. So, really, it all comes down to luck. Sure, Wendell, Tyson, and Natalie had a little more time on the puzzle than Rob and Pav, but that was not her challenge to lose. I will argue that, okay? That actually was fair at the end. And the fact that so many were able to get that far along either shows that a table maze is tough, or that other people are just slow at doing the other stuff. So that was a good showing from everybody, and given those speeches to some of those old school people, although it wasn't just old school people, because I think Wendell, Sophie got a speech there. I could be wrong on that. You know, it's just a nice way to put it all into retrospect, especially since Rob at the Ponderosa vid stated, I knew this would be hard coming in, but of course I was going to do it. I'm not going to turn down an opportunity to be a part of something this big for the show. Although I do find it a little annoying that Rob counts his Island of Idols days in his total. Like, dude, if you really played 188 days on the show, that means that you only missed out on, hold on, like a week of gameplay. You didn't do that. That's Pav if you count her edge days. Although if you don't count edge days, they still are the top two in terms of day getters, because they did beat Ozzy, although not by much. And then if you do count their edge days, then they've got quite a lot. And Pav has 149, which is kind of ironic because had they waited till day 36, then she would have been like perfect bookends with her Survivor days 36, 39, 39, 36. That would have been kind of funny, huh? And it's really ironic that she describes her worst outing as being only 1 day worse in her eyes, by the way, than the first time she played, because that's something that's ironic about her. Her percentage of days playing was getting better and better until this season, but even then, if you just. Actually, I've already done the math, sorry. You see what I mean? There's too much to put into this business, so let's continue onward. Natalie comes back, and Tony naturally is worried about the idol business, and everyone else is like, nah, she doesn't have it. But the thing is, I bet that they were thinking that she didn't have an idol that was given to her like Rick and Chris had when they got back into the game. So I bet that they weren't thinking of fire tokens, which kind of makes sense because while we got a good sense of what this fire token thing could offer, partially because of the edit, and then partially because it's the first time, and partially because of the edge, tough. But I do think that there is more to see from this, but odds are this is just going to turn into what's happening with the steel vote, extra vote, idol nullifier. It's just something that they throw into a season rather than making something the norm, because I was certain that the idol nullifier would be a norm. Now it's just a one-off in whenever it appears, which I'm disappointed by. Okay. That immunity challenge, it didn't hit me until I saw the puzzle, and Jeff actually mentions that Michelle had done that, and then I'm like, wait a minute, because everyone's having a decent amount of trouble. And then Michelle shows up, last place again, and is able to totally bamboozle them on the puzzle, though I was kind of glad that she did at first, because I wanted Natalie's idol to get flushed out, and you gotta remember, I like Natalie, and I like San Juan del Sur in hindsight, and had I done top picks for San Juan del Sur, which I didn't, Natalie would have been one of them. I can guarantee you for that. So, but I didn't want her to win this because of the edge business. Like, had it been Sophie, Wendell, Sophie, Jeremy, or Nick coming back, I would have been less picky because, they had just been voted out. But someone in Natalie's position, didn't want that. And then again, after everyone gets back to camp, because they're also dead set, oh, Natalie doesn't have an idol, that they aren't even really thinking about it. Just, come on. Sarah, Ben, just... if you had just thought about it a little more, like, I'm sure that Sarah and Ben have explained in their interviews, and based on which ones that I listened to, I didn't listen to everything, there's too much, even if it is just Rob Sesternino and Dalton Ross. Okay, it's too much. I'm sure that they had reasons, but it just doesn't make any sense. Just run the math. Come on. Although, given how everyone had public knowledge of Tony's idol, I shouldn't have been surprised that Natalie and Michelle targeted Ben, because don't want to target Tony because of the idol, and he was willing to play it for Sarah before, so not the best idea to target her, though they could have. Denise, yeah, she's racked up a couple of immunities, but those are gender-biased immunities. Look at her at the other time, she's not even close, really, so... yeah, it does make sense to target Ben, especially since he's good at making fire. They kept throwing that in there every once in a while, but it is so easy to miss. Right. So, that's where I did a face plant, though I had done it for Tony and company just a few minutes prior to that. So then we go to the tribal, and then everyone starts playing their stuff. Though what they forget about is that means that there'll be a new one played. And during this season, people kept saying, well, because there was an idol played at Tribal, a new one is going to be hidden. No, it doesn't work like that. Because of those 3 idols before the merge, one gets played, they don't do a thing. Usually. Yeah. If 2 get played, they'll put another one in there so it stays at 2. But if all 3 get played, they've changed it. Because I think one time there might have been 2, but the rest of the time they go to the age-old tradition of just having 1 in there. At least that's what it seems to be. It's so hard to keep track of it now because of all the other stuff. Again, you're causing problems, CBS. Then as for, Michelle and Natalie not forcing the tie between Sarah and Denise, which I thought would have been smart. Turns out they did think about it, but then they concluded probably wouldn't work. So once they say that, though it should have been acknowledged in the edit, I'm like, okay, I'll forgive you for that. So Denise, I don't think she was bad. Like, she was talking to people like she was in Philippines, so Denise hasn't changed. It's just the people that she's stacked up against have changed. That's really it. Didn't want her to win, given the edits that Tony and Sarah were getting, though, but she can hold her head up high. She did, good. She's still the same Denise. And really, to be on, the losing tribe at the beginning, and actually, finding a thing or two, I still give her props for what she managed to do. Alright, so then we got round 2 of Tony and company, well, Tony, Sarah and company versus Natalie, with Michelle tugging Alon. They find the idol, which I was disappointed by because I wasn't rooting for those 2, only because I felt Tony and Sarah were the better deserving people. Tony was able to pull out that immunity, which I was pretty glad about, because Natalie had already acknowledged, without saying these exact words, that they would have an easier time pulling in Sarah than the guys. So I'm like, okay, Tony gets immunity, he's safe. Sarah's the swing vote, she's safe. That makes things a lot easier. And there's huge paranoia going on about the idol business, but I'm like, it's 2 different 50-50s. Tony, you were in this position back in Cagayan when you were trying to decide who you're going to vote between Jeremiah or Spencer. And, like with that season, you correctly figured out that the person who had the idol would rather play it for themselves rather than their ally. Okay, you've been there. It's total 50-50. The dots have to align. There's multiple scenarios where it works for you, and there's multiple scenarios where it doesn't, and it's the exact same amount of instances. Okay? Just, huh? Surprised he didn't remember that, although I wasn't thinking that when I saw it. And then we get the very interesting bit where Ben decides to not fall on his sword, shall we say, because I think to truly fall on his sword, he would have had to have quit the game, but they wouldn't have let him join the jury in that situation, because yes, they did let Janu do that in Palau, but number one, that was old school, where people would say, vote me out, give this other person a chance. And for whatever reason, I think people's respect of other people doing a move like that has changed. Unless it's before the merge. I think before the merge it might fly a bit, but after the merge, I don't think so. But that was still kind of touching because it shows that Ben, even though he did have explosiveness at the end of Triple H, he is a nice guy. It was just he did what he had to do in his situation. So I was rather impressed that he did that, saying that, he doesn't have a chance of winning. He knows it. Everyone knows it. He's like, why don't I try and help you out a little bit? And you know that I'm not turning against you. I'm acting in your interests here. Because you're safe no matter what. So I do admire him for that. Even though you gotta remember, I was rooting against him this entire season. Unfairly, I will admit, but that was interesting. We haven't seen that in a long time. So then we go to Tribal, and I had begun to think that Natalie would play the idol for herself, but the guys would have voted for Michelle, which is exactly what happened. But then Sarah makes the decision to vote out Ben. And though she admitted that she was doing that to break away from Tony, saying that I'm not trying to just play Tony's game. I'm trying to do my own game, even though she has said over and over again that she wanted to be at the end with Tony just as much as Tony wanted to be there with her. But the problem was, in the ball challenge, Natalie won it. So that created a problem, because Sarah, in her article with Dalton Ross, she indicated that she believes that most people on the jury, had it been a final three between herself, Tony, and Natalie, she believed that she and Tony would get more votes combined than Natalie. But because of them splitting the votes between them, she believes Natalie would have won. And I definitely am of the camp that between the two of them, they would have gotten more votes. It really all depends on what a few people on that jury would have done. Because would Rob have still gone on the attitude of Natalie being you didn't do enough when you got back because you did a bad job of actually taking out Tony there at the end? Odds are he would have, because had this season been normal, meaning that there would have been a straight up vote, it would have either been Tony versus Michelle in the fire making, or Sarah would have flipped on Tony, but my thinking is she wouldn't have. She would have considered it. She would have, but I just don't think that she would have had it in her to vote him out. Not because of anything related to the gender bias bit. I'll touch upon that in a little bit. It's just, you go so far with someone, even though you're starting to get doubt, sometimes you just go with it. That's why I honestly don't think that Laurel would have voted Wendell out had Ghost Island been normal. So my thinking is, Tony would have had to have made fire anyway. Now, would he have beaten Michelle? Well, Michelle... No. Natalie and Sarah, they have both said that Michelle wasn't in the best headspace going in to this tribal, and she knew there would be a fire challenge, and in fact, it originally would have been Tony versus Michelle at the fire making bit, which is what I think would have happened had this been normal. So I don't think the flow of this season was adjusted that much, if you ask me. But of course, the big question is, would Tony and Sarah have split the jury? Somehow, again, while I do think that they would have gotten more votes combined than Natalie, I still think one of them would have won, because Ben, Nick, and somebody, maybe it was Sophie, had told Michelle in the Tony, Michelle, Natalie combination that they had originally been intending to vote for her in order to show some gratitude towards her and go, you weren't horrible at this, but because there were rumors going around in the jury that Natalie was getting more votes than they figured, now they're like, no, we can't afford to do that. So I'm pretty confident that the same thing would have happened here, that there would have been a fracture originally, but then they would have come together and realized, we can't risk this, let's figure it out. I think that the same thing happened in the second season of Survivor New Zealand, because had the jury, I think, had done what they had wanted to do originally, I think that the runner-up for that season would have actually won it, which wouldn't have been good. But of course, that's just me, and who knows? Maybe some of you have heard or read something that has told you otherwise. And you gotta remember, we missed out on so much edit for this season that it's really hard to do on the predictions this time around. I am certain, however, it would have been fire-making regardless, though, with Tony in it. I am sure about that. But then, of course, had it been normal, there's the possibility that Michelle wouldn't have practiced. Ooh. That's something. But of course we can't predict that. Yeah. And Michelle seems to argue that she's not bad at making fire, and I believe that. Alright. And, that, jury critique bit, I think they did a good job pointing out positives and a few negatives, but saying that each of you has a story, and you made the best with what you could. Good job. Oh yeah, Rob, Parv, I think Ben, Sophie, or Wendell had things to say, but that weren't entirely positive. But I do think that they ultimately were kind of calm in their decision-making. And it really goes to show that Michelle is not horrible. I just wanted Aubrey to beat her. Again, I don't dislike Michelle. I don't. Would I say that she's improved? She's improved in my books, but that's a personal reaction, not so much a critique reaction. So, I was a little nervous when they were showing the votes, because Natalie having votes 3 and 4, I couldn't figure out who those people would be. Though, given how they didn't show Jeremy, I should have seen that coming. And, Ethan was part of that, big group, which kind of existed on the edge, as was shown in the secret scene, but at the same time kind of didn't, because ultimately the block was split, because you had Tyson, Pav, and Ethan voting for Natalie, then you had Rob, Amber, and Danny voting for Tony. Yeah, although, if you listen to her jury speak bit, Pav seemed to be way more anti-Natalie in there than she did in the jury speech there, but it could be that she suspected Tony would win and is like, I'm going to try and put some of my issues aside and show you that I'm not a huge judge? I can't think of any other way to describe that bit. It's possible, because I can't find any interviews with Pav out there that describe her upon how she did her jury bit, because everything is just overall reaction to the season and what she's been doing since the season. Right. So Tony gets it, and I am officially the luckiest guy ever when it comes to picks. Because I have no clue why I picked him. I was just like, let's get someone in there who's a little less obvious. And I felt like Denise and Sophie were a little more obvious, so I just said Tony. I am super lucky. So yeah, first time since Cambodia, I've had a top pick win. No, I am not counting Triple H. Anyway, so that was good. I'll tell you the ranking for this season, along with the improvement of all the other people in the next video, which is what I normally do. And addressing the gender issue, because I don't feel like it was appropriate to mention it during the episode progression. I will give some attestment to that, because I saw this throwback video where people mention certain ironies between past remarks that people have done, however trivial they were, and then how it played out either the same or differently in Winners at War. And Sarah's making the accusation against Kaz, going, oh yeah, you're a liar, Kaz, like, why are you doing this? And then it cuts to her admitting, I had to play a cutthroat game, and it's hard. And then there's the gender bias bit, and I think Kaz also said the same thing, going, if I was a guy, it's called cool. Since I'm a woman, it's not cool. And I definitely do think that if I rewatch various seasons, I bet that I'm going to look at some people and go, what was I complaining about them? Because I've been thinking for a long while now, since like Triple H, that if I was to rewatch Australian Outback, where previously I was going, Jerry, why are you so over Colby? It's stupid. Nowadays, if I look back, I actually wouldn't be too surprised if I think Colby was the one that was overreacting. Not to say that Jerry was perfect, but it wouldn't surprise me. Which goes to show, that season is really sliding down. And, yeah, it just wouldn't surprise me that in some ways that I argue against people like that. Although, what's her face from David vs. Goliath? This is so stupid that I can't remember her name. I didn't think her gameplay was that bad. It was just rocky, totally unstable, not flowing nice. Because Sarah, I was a little disappointed with her winning Game Changers, but I felt like her gameplay was pretty smooth there. I just wasn't focusing on her based on everything that was going on around her, but part of that was because in Kagayan, she got cut before we could see all we could from her, even though I did say, bummer, because there's more to see from her. So, you know how I'm eating my own words back and forward on this thing here? It's hard. And like even Boston Rob, who I like, and I've said multiple times I'm a Rob fan, I wouldn't be too surprised if he does have some gender bias in him, because Natalie points out in her interview that he was like, go at it, do this, or oh wait, was that, or maybe that was Sarah, damn it. But okay, one of them pointed out how he had made a remark that said, okay, if you do this, I'll do this to help you out at the end. And then you see him praising Tony and going to Natalie, I told you, if you get back, you need to go for it and play perfect. You almost did. You didn't take this guy out. I don't know. Because that implies to me that even though he would have been kind of proud of what Natalie had done, I feel like if he had done that, he would have just been voting for the person that he liked the most. Because that's what Tyson and Jeremy did, even though Jeremy did the same thing when Natalie won San Juan del Sur. So, I think I've round the point home on that issue that I do need to look back at my own bits, because, you know, white, male, well-income family who's one of atheist or Christian, I've never had to deal with placeism or any of those things. I've never had to deal with it, and it's kind of sad. Because there's people out there that struggle with this, and all I've got to struggle with is my learning disability, which is actually not nearly as big a deal as I've just made it sound because of my father being able to understand the system and knowing how to get me in there. Right. And I do agree that this video was kind of thrown in together, but you gotta realize that the whole season was like that. Like with David vs. Goliath, I agree with all the pros and all the negatives for this season. This season is good, and it's trying to do too much, and the edit couldn't keep up with it. Although I do feel more comfortable with this edit than Game Changers, but again, is that the gender bias kicking in? Think about it. I'll let you guys be the judge on that, especially once you see my ranking for this season, but that's not going to be for a long time because as of when I'm recording this, I haven't even finished uploading the Ghost Island videos. But did I like this season? Yeah. Did it have problems? Yeah. Is it a little overhyped by Jeff and various other people? Mm-hmm. But is this one of the better All-Star seasons? Yeah, but it has that big issue with it. What's the best All-Star season? Cambodia. Easy. And you gotta remember, every time they've done an All-Star season, I've always had a top pick get at least second. Okay? And, of course, in All-Stars, it didn't matter who won. Like with Australia, why are we complaining about that result? Like, us Colby fans, we need to take a step back. And then in All-Stars, yes, Rob should have won, but they were engaged. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right. But I am glad that they finally did this season, though I hope they have enough seasons to do a Challengers versus Winners season at some point. I think that would be interesting. Or as Earl stated, a US versus Australia season, or possibly even South Africa. That would be nice. Okay, I gotta end this because I'm pretty sure I'm running out of space on this thing. See ya.